I believe that once in a while we come across experiences that are unforgettable. And I'm here because I think I have one to share. In this video, I will share one of the most memorable moments during my placement as an occupational therapy student. One of my roles was to plan and implement individual service provisions. In other words, carry out interventions with residents to enable meaningful participation in activities, improve overall well-being, to reduce or to help manage behavioral symptoms associated with dementia. I used to get confused about dementia and Alzheimer's disease. Simply put, dementia is a group of symptoms that are caused by disorders affecting the brain. It is not a specific disease. Alzheimer's disease, on the other hand, is just one of the many forms of dementia. Other forms of dementia could be vascular disease, dementia with Lewy bodies, and many more. Among these, Alzheimer's disease is the most common form of dementia, and 7 in 10 people with dementia have Alzheimer's disease. And Mr. P is one of them. Mr. P, because he's an excellent paint artist. However, he barely understands or uses speech. He has no recognition of friends and family. He has incontinency. He has no orientation to time, space, reality. He's often seen confused and sometimes anxious and distressed. During those times, if you were to approach Mr. P and say, "Hi, how are you?" he would go, "I don't know, what am I doing? I don't know. I just want to know, what am I doing?" However, by the end of my placement, which was 4 weeks long, we managed to have at least 7 successful intervention sessions, which mainly involved drawing. Imagine that Mr. P has very limited social connections, usually sitting by his own. Eventually, I found out from the staff, from the care staff, that he used to paint. Painting didn't really work, but eventually drawing did. The first time that I got Mr. P to actually draw, it was actually really lucky of me. I would do the setting up, so I'll carefully but intentionally put the materials, like the blank drawing paper, in front of him on the table, as much as possible within his frame of vision, and pick the color pencils out and lay it in front of him and put it into his hand. I realized that he is not even looking what's on the table. He would just slouch and look down. I started drawing a circle on the drawing paper because I thought it was a little bit too blank. That's what happened that got him drawing, following the lines of the circle that I initially drew. So throughout sessions and sessions, I've tried different shapes. Turns out circles still works the best. Tracing, for example, a cup, just to trace the shapes of objects, that didn't work so well. Different timing of the day, music. There are many times that I can't get his attention. I usually give myself a time frame to try a few times, change color pencils, or draw on a new page, drawing a little more, create a contrasting color, create that friction between the pencils and the paper. My hand on the paper as well. I'll pass it on to him and say, "Your turn," and sometimes it works. Just a trial and error, and sometimes it doesn't work. There were a few magical moments that were just jaw-dropping to me. Here they are. Magical moment 1. He drew for 14 minutes. By his own, without any directions or instructions. Also, in the same session, rather than just draw with one hand, he actually used his left hand to adjust the paper so that he could draw what he wanted in a specific direction. And that's amazing because the activity actually got him to engage the other hand, which would otherwise be at rest. And that would also mean that he is using another part of his brain. Magical moment 2. He decorated his drawing with apples. So there was just this bowl of apples that I prepared for another resident, but she didn't want it, so I gave it to Mr. P. And I didn't really get any of his attention or anything. I think that was a 15-minute session. He gave a finishing touch to his drawing by placing the apples inside the circles that he has created. Isn't that amazing? Magical moment 3. He picked another color pencil. Usually what happens is that he would just use that one color pencil throughout the whole session, but I saw him from afar, looking just right above the drawing, and that was where the color pencil case is at. And soon after, he approached and took another color pencil. He's never done that. The pencil case had more than 20 color pencils to choose from, and that decision making from him is just incredible. Also in the same session, he adjusted his sitting position from a slouchy position to a more upright sitting, nicer and taller, so that he gets closer to the table and closer to the drawing paper so he could draw better. These were all little milestones for me to get me through the week. Leave, amazing supervisor. She's always said when you're on duty, turn on that observational lens and clinical lens and many other lenses that you gotta turn on. And I find that very helpful because over time, I quickly realized that Mr. P has a greater attention span after lunch, and also a greater extent of engagement. For example, reaching for another color pencil, using the apples as decoration. He's highly responsive positively to aroma oils. He would actually comment on it accurately. For example, oh, it's nice. Also very responsive to temperature changes, especially when it's touching onto his skin or like when the wind blows. So that would actually give me ideas on what kind of sessions that I can have with him. Unfortunately, I couldn't combine the olfactory sensory stimulation together with the drawing because I thought that would maybe prompt him to engage in drawing, perhaps after having the sensory stimulation of the aroma oil. Another thing that I learned is that it doesn't mean that a resident or a person enjoys the activity even though physically they are responding to it. So for example, Mr. P would play balloon volleyball with me and even his daughter who comes to visit, but he would say, "That's enough, alright, the last one," with a very almost angry face, but if you continue hitting the balloon towards him, he would react. That was it. Mr. P and his magic. So even though Mr. P doesn't know who I am and will never know, he surely did make my placement a very unforgettable one.